when I think of Christmas, I always think of people. We'd have friends over, play games. Of course, a lot of times we had snow here, and so there are a lot of sleigh riding and snowball fights and things like that in my memory. But it was all about the people. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Beyond Labels podcast with yours truly, Joel Salatin, and my partner in crime, Dr. Sina McCullough. Merry Christmas, everyone. It's the time of year when we celebrate Christ's birth, gift giving, and fellowship in probably more intimate ways than we do any other time of year. And think about family, friendship, and all the warm fuzzies that surround the Christmas time. And so we thought we'd do a short podcast today talking about Christmas traditions and memories. Sina, I think that sometimes when we don't do traditions, we lose our identity, as people. And I think it's important to appreciate that having routine, building memories is really a powerful part of human development. I mean, we live in a dysfunctional time where a lot of people carry bad memories. And so it's really a part of our health and part of our grounding, our anchoring, if you will, as people, is to build in some good memories. And what better time to build in some good memories than the Christmas season? So Sina, what's your your families or your big deal around Christmas? What do you think?
So yeah, and I completely agree. So Christmas is my favorite time of the year. I literally start counting down till Christmas on December 26th. I just can't wait for Christmas to come around. For me, Christmas is, obviously it's to celebrate Christ's birth. But it is a magical time of the year for me. It's a time where anything is possible, right? If you just believe. And that goes, like you said, for your health as well. We talk about that a lot, the power of perception, the power of belief. And in my family history, Christmas was always a time for me to kind of escape into that magical world, into that world of believing again that anything's possible. Like many people, I didn't have a great childhood growing up. So some of my best memories were during that time of Christmas where the family was getting along and, it was that hopeful time of the year. So I've brought forward those, the feeling of magic, of belief, of anything is possible. That's my biggest tradition that I actually try to pass on to my children. So it's not something physical. It's not what I cook for them or places that we go. It's the feeling of Christmas time and all that potential that it holds.
That magic and mystery of Christmas is both in the religious and non-religious traditions. I mean, the magic of the birth of Christ for those of our listeners that are of a more traditional, conservative, a biblical Judeo-Christian worldview, and then you have, of course, the secularization of the magic of Santa Claus and the reindeer and the whole thing, and Winter Wonderland, Frosty the Snowman, and so there is it is one time where that tent is big enough to accept the imagination, the mystery, and the, as you say, the magic of all those traditions. It's a big tent, and it's a culturally uniting, powerful thing.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. So what's your traditions in your family?
Well, when I think back of what our traditions, I was sitting here trying to think, and I couldn't think of a single present I'd ever got. Now, well, we got presents, we exchanged gifts, but it is profound for me at this point in my life that I can't think. I think there was one time when my brother and I got bicycles, but I can't remember gifts. What my adult memories, thinking back, are all about food. Mom always made peanut brittle, and that's a sugary. You put peanuts in this sugary sheet, and that was a big deal. And of course, too, people who know us know that our family was in Venezuela for a decade, and so we lived in the tropics, and so we brought back from there. One of the traditions that we did in our family was Mom would always go down and buy several coconuts. I mean, just raw, real coconuts, and take them all and punch in the little hole in and drain out the milk and drink that coconut milk. I mean, just drink. She'd set it in a little like on a drinking glass, and that was like Christmas is here. When you saw the upside down coconuts draining into the glass, and
well, coconuts for Christmas. That's very unique.
And she would cook those. She would cook those in the oven, and of course they would break apart, and that fresh just eat coconut. So that's probably a little unusual one, but we brought that back from Venezuela because it was such a big deal there, and maintained it here. I don't know if we got Venezuelan coconuts or not. They probably came from who knows where, but anyway, that was a tradition. And then the other thing that for me is the memory is just the people. I always, we'd have friends over, play games. Of course, a lot of times we had snow here, and so there were a lot of sleigh riding and snowball fights and things like that in my memory. But it was all about the people. Probably one of the most distinct memories I have is we had a family over, friends family, and we had a meal and all this, and we kids, I don't know how old I was, might have been 11, 12. We were up in the living room. Of course, the adults are down there, they're doing their visiting, and the kids were up, playing games, whatever we were doing. And Mom always she decorated the mantle up over the fireplace with greenery and candles. And of course the candles were not lit unless you had guests in and you had, the whole, shindig going on. And it got later in the evening and the candles burned down farther, and one of them caught the greenery on the mantle on fire. And so everybody was scrambling to put the fire out, and grabbed a blanket off a sofa and pounded it out. And that was a pretty exciting evening, but that was a real memory. But the memory, the reason that it happened was because we had decorated for Christmas. I mean, that's the thing to remember. And so it was it was a result of our efforts to create special space in our life that then, made this fire. It didn't do any damage. It had a little, black stain there on the mantle, but it flared up, pretty good there for a minute. And it was pretty exciting.
That is so cool. I'm so excited that you brought that up, especially about the candles, because I brought something. This is show and tell time. So if you're watching the video version, you can see this. If you're on the podcast, I'll try to explain it. So one of my favorites.
Yes.
Yes, if you can see
Yes.
it. Right?
Yeah,
so
we had one of those.
It's the candles. And you light the candles, and then there's little angels, and they spin around and they ding the little bells. So here, and you can hear the bells. So this actually was my grandmother's, and every year, my parents were divorced, so we went to multiple Christmas celebrations. But every year at my grandmother's house, she would have this sitting, like front and center, and she only lit the candles on Christmas. And I remember being a child just staring at it. For me, this this was so magical. I was like, how is it doing that? Right? How are these candles making these angels spin and the bells ring? And like, I still don't know. No, no, I'm just kidding. I have subsequently figured it out. But as you know, as a 6-year-old, you're staring at this and just in wonderment. And this captures the spirit of that magic of this season that we're talking about. So she passed this on to me because she knew she's still alive today. She's like 97, but she passed this to me so that I could share in this spirit and capture it with my children. And sure enough, when I got it a couple years ago, my 5-year-old sat there and stared at it in wonderment, just like me, and then we turned it into a science lesson, but but I let him sit there and enjoy that wonderment and try to figure it out on his own. It's just, and sometimes I do light it more than just at Christmas. So sometimes if I'm, feeling a little blue, need some encouragement, I keep it in my office and I'll just light it and listen to listen to the bells ding. And it just reminds me of that spirit and gives me hope again.
Yeah, because those the vent on the top, those angels are spinning, but there's no visible connection between the candle. There's no visible connection. It's just the heat rising, turning the fan on top.
Yes.
And so that's what makes it so mysterious as a child, is that there's no engine, there's no motor, there's no, what is this that's making that go? So yeah, I grew up with one of those in the home too. Mom still has it. She hasn't given it to me yet. I must confess that I didn't have the same sense of wonderment. It's a little bit, I don't know. It drives me crazy sometimes. all the bells, but yes, it is definitely a part of Christmas, which in our house, it always sat up in the living room, and we didn't spend much time in the living room. Our living room is kind of, off, and we still don't spend much time there. It's just like the living room was reserved for entertainment and special occasions. It was a big room. We have a big living room, but it was kind of off the rest of the house. It was not this incorporated living room like a lot of places have now, where you have the open architecture. Ours was off on the side there where nobody went. And but at Christmas, that's when we spent time in the living room. That's where the tree was. That's where the presents were. And you know what? It was also where the record player was. Vinyl records. And we had a huge assortment, because mom loves music, and we had a huge assortment of the Nutcracker Suite, the New York Philharmonic, and a lot of my memories are around listening to that. And you know what? Today, I can listen to Christmas music 365 days a year. I love. I can never get. I think as a genre, Christmas music is probably some of the most enjoyable, easy to listen to, harmonic music around. And I still love Christmas music. How about you?
I absolutely agree. And I play it throughout the year too. But one time I always play it is when we're decorating our trees, right? And it's always the traditional Christmas music that my parents had playing. I pass that on to my kids. But I will tell you, so one of my favorite Christmas songs is Mariah Carey's song, All I Want for Christmas Is You. I probably play that like 5,000 times every Christmas season. So much so that I play it and my kids are like, oh, not again. But yeah, that's one song I love. But that's my generation, like we grew up on Mariah Carey. So I blend the older with the new for my kids, and I'm sure as they grow older, they're gonna blend some of their new with mine.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm about a generation older than you, and so I grew up with Bing Crosby, and the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and a lot of big band stuff. and enjoyed all of that. And of course, now that we're grandparents, Teresa's favorite Christmas song is "Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer." So the anticipation, Sina, that we need anticipation in life, don't we? You need to be able to look forward to things. I mean, we're talking about looking backward here a lot today, but a lot of the backward look breeds or facilitates the anticipation going forward.
Yeah.
And your anticipation going forward is directly related to, the joy of looking back. And so these traditions are healing, emotional, spiritual places. They're anchor places. They're anchor places in life where, when things are unsettled and crazy and dysfunctional, they're places that we can emotionally go to find solace and continuity in our life.
Yeah, and that's exactly why that I will play Christmas songs throughout the year. Not every day, but every now and then when I need it, I will.
Yeah.
And it's like what you're describing. It grounds me, right? It reminds me that there is a space that you can create that is healing and is magical and is filled with hope. And it's a reminder that we all have the power within us to create that space, that you really do create your own reality. It is what you want it to be. And so for me, Christmas is that time of the year where I can say, you know what, I am in the driver's seat, and I'm going to create this wonderful, magical, hopeful, joyful time for my children. And my goal, I don't do New Year's resolutions. My goal is to actually hold on to that space, keep that space sacred for my children year round, so that they always can feel grounded. They can always feel connected, and never lose sight of that feeling that anything's possible. And I think for me, that ties into home, the feeling of what home is, and it's what you create. And for me, that Christmas feeling is how home should feel.
Yeah, if there's any time of year that is home centric, July 4th, you go watch fireworks, right? Or you get together at the park with friends to grill out burgers or whatever. Easter is more, church oriented, I think. Thanksgiving is certainly home. But nothing brings home like Christmas. Nothing brings people home like Christmas. I mean, we see it in our stewards, our apprentices, our staff. They don't mind missing home at Easter, missing home at July 4th, missing home Labor Day, whatever. But boy, Christmas, that's when everybody's scrambling to get their name in the pot to be the one to miss Christmas. And I'll be honest with you, I at this stage in our farm life, I struggle a little bit with Christmas that I didn't used to, because so much of we try to give the staff as many as people can get away at Christmas, get away. And so Christmas but the eggs still have to be gathered. The pigs still have to be, taken care of. The cows still have to be moved. And so for our family right now, Christmas has become a time of concentrated extra effort. While we give the gift of everybody else going home, we now have to pick up the slack here on the farm. And that's been it puts a little damper on the season, but we're glad that everybody else is getting their time to go and enjoy that season.
Yeah, that's a wonderful gift that you're giving to so many families. I mean, that's such a blessing for them, and they'll remember that. Like that will actually be part of your legacy, moving forward.
Yeah. One of the little childhood memories that I have, it was really funny. My little sister, who's 5 years younger than I am, she was about 3 or 4, and it was snowing outside. And we were decorating the tree up in the living room. So I'm 8 or 9, and she's 3 or 4, and it was snowing pretty hard outside. It was one of those, Christmas card, perfect Christmas times. We're decorating the tree. We're listening to the Nutcracker Suite on the record player, and we're there doing that. And the snowflakes were so heavy they were coming down the chimney in the fireplace, pattering in the chimney. You could hear it. And my sister turned around and she looked at Mom and she said, "Santa Claus come down chimney?"
Oh.
She heard that little clattering, that little sound in the chimney, those snowflakes. It was just and of course, we joke with her about that all the time now, in front of her kids to help embarrass her. But all of those are about family memories. And I love what you said about, sometimes Christmas memories are not good. There are times when you're forced to pick one parent over another. There's of course crazy Uncle Harry that gets drunk, or what, there's a lot of stress at Christmas.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you bringing out that you have to make the decision to make it what you're going to make it. And if you want it to be a happy time, you put on your happy face, and you let yourself step into that magical time. And create that safe space for your children and your family, and that's something that you can control, because you can control that spirit of Christmas in your own house. You don't have to control it down the street. You don't have to control it in that family over there, but you can control it in your own home. And that's a very powerful, hopeful, empowering thought.
Yeah. And along those lines, so Christmas was stressful for me as I got older. So as a child, it was that magical time that we were talking about. And I loved it. I looked forward to it. And then as I grew older, my parents had divorced, and it was spend this amount of time at this parent house. And then you had to run over and spend this amount of time. Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it was this competition between them. Like literally one year, one of my parents said, "You spent 30 minutes longer with your other parent than with me." Like, as though, oh, I love that parent more because I was there 30 minutes longer. So there was always this stressful component to it as I grew older. And so I actually grew to kind of dread all the holidays, because I always had the divorced parents that we were, shuttled between, and nothing that we seemed to be able to do was ever good enough. And then as I got older, that's when I realized that I was in the driver's seat. And like you're saying, I could create my own reality here. And so one thing, and this is one thing I wanted to share, in case anybody else also is feeling stressed during the holidays. One thing that I changed is I stopped cooking the whole traditional feast, both for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. So, and it's a little bit easier for me because we don't have a ton of family that gets together. Right now it's just us. It's just my immediate family. Okay. So I was still doing the traditional foods, like everything my mom used to cook. She was a home economics major. She cooked everything from scratch, and it was so wonderful. It was yummy. The house would smell delicious for days. But the problem was it took her all day long to cook all this food for everybody. And then as I got older, I was asked to come into the kitchen and also partake in the, day long cooking activities. And what happened was, by the time dinner came, she was exhausted. She couldn't enjoy the moment with us, and her time was spent in the kitchen. And then obviously subsequently my time was spent in the kitchen. So I carried that tradition on though. And when my kids were very young, and I remember it vividly, Joel, I was in the kitchen cooking, all of the many side dishes and main course. And I heard in the other room, my husband with my children, and they were laughing having a great time, right? They were playing games and, he was chasing them around playing tag. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I am stuck in this kitchen, slaving away for the whole day. I'm totally tired now. And you're over there having fun. Like, this is my memory. And all of a sudden it hit me. My memories of my children's Christmases and Thanksgivings are going to be me in the kitchen alone, slaving away while listening to the laughter. So I actually stopped right what I was doing. I went over to them and I said, hey, something doesn't feel right about this. Like, I want to be part of this too. I want to laugh and play with you guys. So it was such a beautiful moment, Joel. We sat together as a family. And even though my children were young, they knew what they wanted. And I asked them, what do you guys really want, like for Christmas? And we do this for Thanksgiving too. What do you really want? And you know what they said? We want to play with you.
Oh my.
Even now I'm starting to tear up. They wanted time with their mommy and their daddy, right? For children, that's often how it is. Time spent with them in the moment means love, right? That is love for them. And that's what he was asking me. He was asking me just to love him. And so we changed I let go of that old tradition in that moment. And we started a new tradition for our family. And so now what we do is we cook a nice meal, but I cook every day, right? So we cook a nice meal that my children picked what we were going to have. So for instance, we'll have salmon for Thanksgiving, they like to have things like prawns for Christmas, but the point is it's a meal that's wholesome, it's nutrient dense, and it doesn't take me longer than a normal day's cooking. That way I have the time and I have the energy to just be in the moment with them. And so we play all day long. Like on Christmas, I wake up before any of the kids. This is my husband's, one of his favorite things about me. He's like, you're a big kid. Like you get more excited than the kids for Christmas. Like, have you seen, you probably haven't, but have you seen the movie Elf with Will Ferrell?
Yeah, no.
Okay, there's a scene where he's an actual elf, right? And there's a scene where Santa Claus shows up to the department store and he's screaming, he's jumping up and down and he's like, Santa, right? Okay, that's me. Like, in fact, Santa came in our neighborhood 2 nights ago in the fire truck, and I was recording my kids, as they were watching Santa come through, and the spirit just comes over me. I start screaming, Santa, hi! Like, so anyhow, Christmas morning, I get up before the kids, and I'm up at least by 4 a.m. I'm down at the bottom of the stairs with my video recorder, waiting until they wake up, and I want to capture that magic on their faces when they come down, so I'm up before them. We open our gifts, first thing, and pretty much we just hang out and we play with the toys they got. We play board games, card games, we play tag, you name it. But that's our new family tradition. It looks very different than what I had growing up, but we love it, and I keep pieces of it, like this candle with the angel, I keep pieces of my past that I bring forward. But like I said, my goal is to pass on that feeling and that magic and that hope of the holidays. And now that we have branched off from my traditions, I feel like every year we've accomplished that.
That's profound power and very helpful, actually, because you can actually become a regimented slave, to expectations. And so, you have to just create those places. I mean, I'm a bookworm. I love books. And so now that, a lot of times my Christmas, of course, with the grandkids, we played with them a lot, but now lots of times, they're older. And so they have their more adult things. And so, I always get a couple new books for Christmas. That's one of my things. And I get to, and they're often books that I wouldn't buy for myself, because of, if I want a business book, I just get the business book. But so these are always, a lot of them are history, different things. And so I get to prop my feet up and just spend a couple hours Christmas afternoon reading, and don't feel guilty about, oh no, what am I not getting done? Like I would on a normal day, on a normal weekday. Oh, I can't just sit here, prop my feet up and read, and so, I think it's good to have those spaces that we create for our own, rejuvenation. I call these, things like that, I call them commas, commas in life. And you don't always need to take a Disney cruise or a great big hoopla, but we do need commas. And these provide us commas. So, well, wonderful, Sina. Yeah. What else?
I was going to say, and speaking of commas, we wanted all the listeners and the viewers to know how grateful we are that you tune into us every week, and you make this podcast and this video possible. We're so grateful to share this space with you. And Joel and I are going to take a comma next week, right? We're going to take a little break so that we can carve out that special time with our families. And then we're going to join you again the first week in January for our New Year's special. And we have a little bit of a surprise, talk about anticipation, right? With all the negativity that surrounds us these days, Joel and I decided to launch an entire episode just on good news, right? Good news in food, good news in health, good news in just any area, wherever we can find some good news. I've challenged Joel to just search for the good news and bring that to our listeners. So our first episode of the new year, we're going to start out with a bang and bring you all good news to start out your new year in a positive light.
Great. Thank you, Sina. And thank you all. Certainly. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and Merry Christmas to one and all.
Yeah.